Why can it feel so disappointing when your children don't enjoy something the way you imagined? Give me a few minutes of your time and I'll help you understand why it can feel surprisingly disappointed when you've put your heart into creating something lovely for your children, only to find they don't seem nearly as invested in it as you are. One of the hardest things about moments like these is that the disappointment often disguises itself as irritation, guilt, or hurt, and you might feel the urge to persuade, withdraw, or make your child do it properly. If this sounds familiar, start with my free Sigh to Snap spotter to help you recognize the automatic ways you react when your own effort goes unnoticed, so you can respond with more kindness towards your child and yourself. I'm Emma Reed, a psychotherapeutic counsellor and parent coach. I've worked with parents for over a decade, and one thing I've learned is that some of the most powerful parenting moments often happen at a craft table, on a family activity, or during an ordinary Saturday morning. Because over the years, I've noticed that everyday family life has a surprising way of uncovering some of our deepest longings. In this video, I want to help you make sense of a feeling that many mums find confusing. It's the disappointment that can show up when you've put a huge amount of care into creating a special activity and your child experiences it differently than you imagine. I'll show you how the hurt or frustration aren't really about the glitter, the paint, or the mess, and how they're actually pointing towards hopes and longings that are much bigger than the craft itself. Let's say it's a Saturday morning, just you and the children. You've planned a craft activity at your 4-year-old's request, which unfortunately includes glitter and paint, but you've decided to give it your all. You call everyone over, imagining their faces lighting up as they see the craft supplies laid out on the table. At first, everyone gets involved, although your eldest mutters about it being babyish. You manage to spark his imagination enough for him to get enthused again, but then the younger two start fighting over the brushes. So you crouch down and negotiate peace, and things settle enough for you to enjoy making your own craft alongside them. And for a moment, it actually feels lovely. You look around at them all, smiling and chatting. Even with glitter everywhere, this feels worth it. Then the spell breaks slightly. Your youngest has dabbed paint half-heartedly across 3 sheets of metallic paper at once and is now pouring glitter on her paint-covered fingers in fascination. You look at the messy scene, your little girl now grabbing the chair with her colourful fingers as your middle child distractedly snips off tiny pieces of paper all over the floor. And while you don't want to interrupt their fun, you can't shake the feeling it wasn't quite the magical moment you'd hoped for, which may feel awful to admit. Before long, the disappointment can turn into guilt that maybe you're somehow expecting too much. And suddenly that lovely Saturday morning doesn't feel quite so lovely anymore. This can often feel painful, and many mums do their best to manage without fully realizing they're trying to solve a deeper issue. Some mums start persuading, others start fixing, some start directing their children, and others quietly blame themselves because they're trying to get back to the lovely feeling they had a few minutes earlier. The reason these reactions don't really work is that most mums are trying to solve the wrong problem. It seems like my child isn't joining in properly or the activity isn't going as planned, but that's not the thing that hurts. What hurts is more like, I worked really hard to create this, and I don't think anybody fully realizes how much effort went into it. Because she's often the one who came up with the idea, gathered everything together, set it all up, and is already thinking about clearing it away afterwards, especially when glitter's involved. But then her children come along and don't join her in the way she imagined. And she's not expecting her children to appreciate her more or behave differently. She knows they aren't bad or ungrateful. They're just children exploring in their own way. But suddenly mums can find themselves holding 2 truths at once. Both, I want my children to enjoy their own experience, and I really wish someone could see what I was trying to create here. When a mum focuses on the activity, though, the disappointment remains. Because if the problem really was paint on the chair, then wiping the chair would solve it. If the problem was children doing crafts wrong, then correcting them would solve it. The deeper reality is that she's often longing for someone to notice, to appreciate the thought, care, and effort that went into creating all this in the first place. And while she knows her child isn't responsible for meeting this need, when that longing isn't being met elsewhere, moments like these can start carrying far more emotional weight than they were ever meant to. This is where my admit, accept, allow approach can help. Step 1 is admit. This is often a surprisingly vulnerable step, admitting you feel disappointed. And it's hard because it can feel like you're being critical of your children when they haven't done anything wrong, but neither have you. Yes, you did hope for something special. Perhaps you pictured your children happily absorbed in play and creativity, but you invested real thought, care, time, effort, and love into creating this activity. And the reality of how your children enjoy the opportunities you provide can often be very different to the beautiful scene you imagined. And that's disappointing. It's okay to admit that. Because once you stop resisting your own disappointment, you can start becoming curious about what it's trying to tell you. Step 2 is accept. This is about accepting two difficult realities at the same time. The first is that your child is having their own experience. They explore the world through their senses, through their own imagination, and make sense of things in ways that aren't always immediately obvious to adults observing them. They're not rejecting you or the craft, they're simply being themselves. The second reality, which is often more painful, is that some of the things you're longing for may not be available right now. Things like appreciation, recognition, or the feeling that someone truly sees the care and effort that went into creating this. And there is a sadness in that. But accepting that sadness isn't the same as giving up on your very real needs, but it does allow you to find a more realistic way to meet those needs. Step 3 is allow. This final step is allowing both of those truths to exist at the same time. Allowing your child to be absorbed in their own experience and allowing yourself to wish it was going differently. Allowing your child to take or leave what you offer and allowing yourself to need encouragement, appreciation, companionship, and support. And it can be helpful to deliberately look for those things in places where you're more likely to find them, whether that's another mum, a supportive relative, a coach or counsellor, or gradually learning to recognise your own effort. Because the answer isn't to stop having needs and to endlessly give all your time, effort, and love with no recognition. It's to make sure you find the encouragement you need in people who are best able to give it. It's to make sure you're not giving your all while all alone. Because what you're doing is valuable and that deserves to be recognised. The reason my approach works is because it helps you see that you're trying to make the craft solve a problem that needs a completely different answer. Your children don't need to become more appreciative, and you don't need to become less caring because none of you are doing anything wrong. Instead, you begin recognizing what the disappointment is really pointing towards, the longing to be seen and to know your care and effort matter. Once you recognize that, you stop needing the craft to go perfectly or your child to join in exactly the right way, and you stop making yourself wrong for feeling disappointed. Instead, you start to enjoy what is actually happening in front of you and appreciate the child you have rather than the experience you imagined. What's tricky is that most mums never realize they're reacting. They simply feel uncomfortable. And without even noticing it's happening, they start trying to make the discomfort go away in an effort to bring back that lovely feeling. But later they can question themselves about whether they handled the situation properly. What they don't realize is that their reactions follow a predictable pattern. My Sight to Snap spotter helps you recognize which reaction is most automatic for you. Once you understand what you're most likely to do when something inside feels uncomfortable, you stop being swept along by the reaction and start to see instead what you're actually hoping for and needing right now. And this means you're less likely to blame yourself or your child or spend hours questioning whether you've done something wrong. And over time, that understanding becomes self-trust, and you become much better at meeting your own needs before accidentally asking your children to meet them for you.